200 million dead. That's quite a claim, quite a figure, isn't it? That's what we're going to be talking about, and how to keep you from being a part of that 200 million dead, or what it's going to look like. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith, and the last couple of days we've been talking about some of the projections from the Deagle study, and we've had a lot of interesting comments and discussions about that. I'm going to get into that. Before we continue, I want to remind you that this and all of my videos are brought to you, sponsored by the Stonemont series, the complete collection of books that will explain exactly how to prepare for and how to survive and how to rebuild after a total collapse. For those who think it can't be done, I would recommend these. It's a series of 6 novels written by me. Started back in 2017, so this isn't a Johnny-come-lately kind of thing. People around the world have been learning from these for years and years, and if you haven't read them, you should, because you will learn from them too, besides being in a great story. And they're available through Amazon or through the Stonemont website, stonemont.us. The links are down below, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that, because I had a great suggestion from one of our commenters, Samsha, I think it was, or Samsha. I don't mean to mispronounce your name if you're watching, just don't know how you pronounce it. Samsha seems a little bit better, but she had a very good, and I'll try to remember to address that. So if you've been with us the last couple of videos, I've talked about the Deagle Report that estimated. Let's get rid of that weenie, by the way, okay? I need a sip of coffee, and we do something here called the weenie weeding, because we've had a couple of people come on and say, I just can't stand your gulping of your coffee. I love your videos and I love your information, but I can't stand your gulping of coffee. And I say, man, you think you're going to survive the end of the world and you can't stand people drinking coffee? So there you go. And then I had some people say, you know what, you need to slurp louder and gulp louder to get rid of those. So I will. Here we go. Just a second. That's as loud as I can do it. And I made myself cough. Okay, we've been talking about the Deagle Report that said, and it compares to the year 2017 to 2025, which we're a year and a half off. It projected, and apparently that's been taken down off of their site, but you can still find it. And I put the chart up over on the Patreon channel for those of you who are on Patreon with us. And if you're not, why not? Come on, man. The link is down below. And it said in 2017, the population of the United States was 317 million, I think, 317. And the projection for 2025, the population is 100 million. So we've talked about why is that. I'm going to add something in here, and I can't wait to see the comments from the people over on Patreon, because I'll say again, for those of you who aren't, the quality of, and I don't mean to diminish those who aren't on Patreon, I simply want to say you should be, because the quality of the breadth and depth of information over there amongst our patrons, we have some super smart people who are tuned in, have been tuned in for a long time. And whenever I make one of these, I look forward to reading their comments, because they will know things that I don't, and they will also help direct everybody else. We have a great community there. So that's my invitation. Please come join us. You'll get a lot more. But I can't wait to see what the folks on Patreon are going to respond to this. So we look at those figures. 2017 to 2025, the United States has lost a population of 217 million. You know, the interesting thing was, how do I say this on YouTube? You know what the deal was that everybody was supposed to do, and many people did do here a couple of years ago, you know? And now they're pumping it again. Have you noticed that? They have commercials now. If you're not, fully, whatted, you better do it. The interesting thing was the percentage of, and I'm going to ask on YouTube, please be very careful about the wording in your comments. On Patreon, you have a little more latitude. The ratio, the percentages of the population reduction in the United States from 2017 to the projection of 2025 is almost identical. Very, very close. Let me put it there. So close to the percentage of the people who you know what. Okay? Isn't it a shame that we have to couch our it like that? Here again, all this stuff also backs up on Rumble. It's down below. So I would suggest, and so I'm putting up, when I put this up on YouTube, I'll also then put it up on Rumble so that if they start, messing around with me, you can still find it on Rumble. So I would suggest you come over and you subscribe to me over on Rumble, because they won't take it down. And I'll be able to say a lot more, and maybe I will over on Rumble. They don't play the games. But another interesting thing that I want to throw in here, and then we're going to get into what does it mean to you, okay? The interesting thing was that in 2017, let me get I wrote this down so I'd get it exactly right, which I have written down in my Stonemont notebook. If you don't have one, you should get one. These are available also on the stonemont.us website. And this is great. I'm loving mine. Okay, 2017, the U.S. military budget was $637 billion. Now, I'm shooting this in 2023. I don't know what it is now. I didn't check. I'm just taking it off the Deagle chart. $237 billion, okay? The world military budget, it was $1.7 trillion. Okay, now, let's go to their projection for 2025. They project that in 2025, the U.S. military budget, get ready for this, hang on to your seats, $32 billion. $32 billion. Down from $637 billion. If I can do math in my head, that's a loss of $605 billion. What do you think is the reason for that? Now, we also compare it over to the world. Remember that 2017, the world military budget was $1.7 trillion. Well, if the United States went down that much, and I didn't figure out what the percentage was, but I mean it's probably over 95%. Then are we going to also see a corresponding reduction in the world military budget? No, we're not. We're going to see a reduction, but not like that. It's down from 1.7 trillion to 1.2 trillion. Boy, there's a lot of room in there to start swimming around and trying to figure it out, isn't it? So let's just review a couple of figures for a second, and then we'll get into what does this mean, what are we going to do? So remember that the population of the United States, 2017, 317 million, okay? 2025 projection, 100 million, a loss of over 200 million, which correlates very closely to that thing that everybody was supposed to do. And 70% did. 70% did. And then look at that military budget going from $637 billion to $32 billion. If I wanted to really get in on my conspiracy hat here, I could run with it. What I would rather do is hear what you all have to say. Now, it does mean that they don't think that the United States is going to need much of a military budget. Why would that be? And you know, you can say also that, well, I mean, that's only a year and a half out, you know, or 2 years out, depending on what part of 2025 they're talking about. A lot can happen, but they can be off a little bit too. I mean, you know, just because they say 2025, could it be 2026, 27, 28? Yeah, it could. It could. I mean, these, you know, projections are never perfect. But the things they base their projections on, although they also aren't perfect, they are predictive. They are indicators. And when you have these large organizations that put their reputations on the line by making projections, they try to be pretty close. Now, is this a warning? Well, yeah, it's a warning to us. But what I meant was it, are they trying to give us a warning? No, I don't think so. I think they're just putting out the figures there because they have clients all over the world. So do I think that it was trying to be a warning to the people of the United States? No, I don't. But should it be a warning to us? Definitely it should be. So where does this come from? What's going to be the cause of 200 million deaths in the United States? Or let me put it this way. Because maybe it's not all deaths, okay? Maybe it's not all deaths. Let me just rephrase that as a reduction of the population. So 200 million people that were in the United States in 2017 are all of a sudden, over a period of years, within a few years, not going to be in the United States anymore. Why? Why? A lot of it could be death. You know, there were a couple of comments saying, well, but with all of these new immigrants coming into the United States, doesn't that beef up the population quite a bit? You know, I don't think, you know, when you're talking about the hundreds of millions, I mean, it's a big problem. But I don't think they're really talking about, you know, anything that would have, you know, make much of a movement in those kinds of numbers. But who knows what could happen, right? But what would be the cause of that? Well, a pandemic could be. We talked about that 2 ago, didn't we? We talked about the coming disease X. A pandemic introduced into a population that would result in 70% mortality? Could it be people wanting to leave the United States? Well, there's always going to be some of those, you know, every few years. Every presidential election, some people get up and say, I'm moving out of the United States, but they never do. We know that we have some people moving out of the United States. It always happens. It's no big deal. People move out and people move in. But we've always grown in population. Could it be an internal conflict? Well, there could be an internal conflict, but I don't see it reaching those numbers of 200 million people. Could it be nuclear war? Well, that could certainly account for 200 million. A nuclear attack on the United States. If you go back and you look at those numbers, and go back through Deagle, you'll be able to find it somewhere. You will see that other countries also experience this, and it's very interesting what countries they are. Go do your own research on that. So yeah, and nuclear strikes could definitely be responsible for those kinds of losses. Could EMP or CME, scientists assure us that a Carrington-class CME is going to occur, eventually, and we're overdue for one. That's what my books are about, by the way, a complete collapse of the world as a result of a CME. That's why if you read these and follow the steps that I put in there, I weave it into the story very nicely. All of the lessons, all those things are wrapped up in a story of people, love and hate and all that. They tell me it's a great story. So yeah, it could be an EMP attack, could be a CME attack, and there will be those that come on and say, oh, it couldn't be this, it couldn't be that, and you don't know, so, I mean, come on, You don't know, and I don't know. I don't know. Could it be a grid down situation? Because it doesn't have to be an EMP attack. I would say that, just right off, a shutdown of the grids. We have 3 grids, East, West, and Texas. I would say that a shutdown of the East and Western grid would probably, whether it's an EMP, a cyber attack, a whatever kind of attack, a physical attack, I could see that resulting in a reduction of the population of 200 million or more. And is the Texas grid going to be, I left them out, but is it going to be immune? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. When you look at the population density along the coasts, though, that's what's responsible, or could be responsible, for 2/3 of the population no longer being here, right? The victims of starvation, lack of good water, violence, injury, illness, societal collapse as a result of that. So I wanted to throw this additional information out there because I think it's worth you thinking about. First off, like I say, I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say, especially over on Patreon. But this should be spinning up your gears. We know that we have a lot of problems. We have economic problems. We have political problems. We have problems of crime and corruption and all. We know all that. All of those things are coming together into the perfect storm that's going to bring about whatever it brings about. But what are you going to do? That's the important thing. Let's assume that you are not going to be among those 200 million who now are no longer here. Where are you going to be? And in what shape are you going to be here? What measures are you taking to assure your survival and your continued, bearable lifestyle, shall we say that? I had I want to get back to Samsha's comment. And I think, actually, I think it was on YouTube, although it could have been on Patreon, I don't remember. And she said, because she was kind of responding to the fact that I kind of take issue with these people that come off and say, well, nothing can be done and nobody can be fully prepared and all this kind of stuff. I have a real low threshold for negativity. I hate excuses. Anybody that knows me will tell you I can't stand excuses. And I have very little patience with excuse makers. I like people who say, we have a problem, how are we going to solve it? Okay. But Samsha made this point. She says, you know what? There are a lot of people out there who are, I'm not going to quote you perfectly, Samsha. I'm going to try to kind of encapsulate what I think you were meaning. She says, a lot of these people that you're talking about who just, give up or don't think that they can reach real preparedness or, he says, they go through a process. It's kind of like grief. I mean, it's they don't know, they're confused, they're scared, they don't know what to do, and the only thing that occurs to them is to give up. They don't know what to do, so they think that nothing can be done. And I kind of said something like this, is the people who said nothing can be done are the ones who won't do what it takes to do it themselves, and so they want to paint themselves as a part of the greater population and say nothing can be done, nobody can do anything about it. Well, things can be done. And so I want to speak a little more gently for just a moment to those people that Samsha, she says, why don't you kind of I don't think she said lovingly, but, gently suggest to these people that they read your books and they can see preparedness and survival in a catastrophic situation in a positive light. I think in the first book, the foreword in there is by John Middleton. He says, this is an unbelievably positive novel about an unbelievably negative event. I think that's, if that's not exactly, that's close to what he said. That's exactly right. We can go through unbelievably negative things, but how it affects us is totally up to us. And there are plenty of people throughout history who have come through unbelievably negative situations and come out the other side very well and lived through it fairly well. Okay? And that's why I wrote these books. I didn't write these books to be just one more series of books on how horrible things were. I wanted to show how a family who was prepared was able to continue living a good life, a high quality life, after everything collapsed, and, just as importantly, were able to help other people as a result of their preparedness. They helped other people. And as they brought more and more good people in, they developed community, a community and then multiple communities that then started to reestablish states, countries, whatever, along the lines that they should be. Okay? But it all comes down to beginning with basic preparedness. And so to those who may think it can't be done, yes, it can. It just takes your focus. You have to put enough resources and thought and energy into it. Simple as that. Yes, it takes money. And here I'll get, well, I don't have any money. And my response to that, because I'm tired of hearing that, my response to that is stop watching this video right now and go make some money. Okay? Come on. Most of you live in the United States. It is impossible to fail in the United States unless you're determined to. Okay? So far. And for those who say that total preparedness is impossible, no, it's not. Just because you think it is for you, I would suggest you open up your mind. Expect more of yourself. Up your game. There are many people out here who, if everything collapsed right now, heck, they'd do better. You know why they'd do better? I have a lot of friends. We sit around and talk about this, and they say, I wish everything would fall apart right now. You know why? Because our quality of life would not change, except it would improve. Why would it improve? But you don't understand, Steve, the golden hordes and horrible things happening all over the place. Well, you haven't been with me long enough if you think that I haven't thought about those things. Okay. But the reason that many people's lives would improve is because they wouldn't have to keep dealing with as many idiots as they do now. Right? Okay. I just wanted to put that out there today. Think about those figures. Think about what you're going to do. Think about it and share your opinions on this. Think about what you're going to do, how you're going to position yourself. Are you going to be one of the 200,000? If these figures, if they come out to be right, don't think that they can't. America is not special. Okay? Civilizations have been collapsing since the start of civilizations. Where are you going to be? What are you going to do? How are you going to get ready? Are you willing? You know, I will say this. I used to say, are you determined to survive? Let me ask this. Are you willing to survive? That means that you are willing to do what it takes in order to set yourself up for survival. Again, the series, the Stonemont series, the reversion, the revival, the renewal, and appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, and the hostages to fortune, available through Amazon. Down below, the link down below, in either paperback or Kindle, or through directly from me through the Stonemont website, stonemont.us. You can put in there if you'd like them autographed or signed by me or whatever you'd like. All those links are down there. If you're not with us on Patreon, you should be. Times are getting more and more interesting, and we'd love you to join us because you'll get a lot out of it. So remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Keep these things in mind. Take them seriously. You don't have to go through life in fear or scared of everything, but you do have to go through life considering the potential threats out there and preparing yourself to deal with them. Y'all have a good day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.